style, and we also understand many Tibetans have requested a Q&A opportunity with Penpa. We want to communicate and listen to everyone, but the people's health and public safety are our top priorities before all else. Due to major health risks and serious consequences of COVID-19 pandemic, large gatherings, tours, and public meetings are major concerns. Too many lives have been lost, and our small communities cannot risk further endangering people's lives. Instead, we have organized several virtual Q&A events to accommodate Tibetan youth in a meaningful discussion for Tibet's future. Kung Penpa, please do the honor of welcome address to our participants and viewers.
Oh, Trishle, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, can all of you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you, thank you, organizers, for creating this opportunity for me to be on the same platform as all these youngsters. This is supposed to be a question answer session, but I would like to hear more about what you think. If there are any questions, of course, I'll also answer, but then this session is basically for me to get feedback from you and what you think, what we should be doing. So thank you for coming. Please begin with the introductions with others who are in this.
If everyone can take this opportunity to introduce themselves. Let's see.
My name is Namze Genso, ng Boston ni.
Tisle nga chimila mo yi Toronto ni.
Tisle nyiming la Tsering, I'm from Dolcurry and I'm from Utah.
Tisle nyiming la Tinsipegi ng San Francisco, California ni.
My name is Norzen Wangpo, and I'm from Minnesota.
Testile ngaming la olo bayui ngate Sunny Boston, Massachusetts ni. Testile.
Testile nga punzo in California ni.
And testile ngaming Namgying and nga Canada.
Kuchana samalo. Go
through. Please start. Whoever wants to take the floor first.
And then Boston
the Pembasin Langigi the Tiwati Indian Pigida. So my question is just the 550 conference was something that I've been to, and I know that I know a couple have been here too. My question is, would you, if you were to win the Sikyong seat, would you continue the 550 conference? And if not, what are your alternatives?
550 conferences, I have never been part of that. In fact, there was a special meeting last year, but we have not been invited for the conference. But I met quite a number of youngsters who have been to 550 conferences, also community leaders who have been part of 550 conferences. I know it's a very important platform and a very catchy title to talk about 550, but at the same time, in terms of the content of the conference and in terms of what all information has been collected for long-term purposes, that I'm not very sure or convinced, mainly because particularly for the youngsters, I believe that first they should be well informed about our community to talk about the long-term future. So my priority would be to reach out to the youngsters first, as I mentioned earlier, in the youth empowerment and also in the finance section and all that. that first the youngsters need to be informed of what is happening. So we'll have more youngsters coming to Dharamsala, have interactions. We'll also have virtual showcase of the Central Tibetan administration as to how it runs, its structure, all that. And then also situation inside Tibet, in China. So all that has to be taken into account. When you ask a person to join 550, they should be very well informed about what is happening so that they can come up with concrete proposals for the long term. I may or may not, because this is something that we need to review, because I have not seen the outputs of the 550 conferences, so I cannot say for sure whether that has been really useful, but we will have a lot more interaction with the youths in future, in whatever name.
I have a comment. So I really liked how you emphasized on informing the youth. I guess like everybody talks about informing and then future generation, but there is little action. So I really like that. You did.
Thank you, Yamsamla, and thank you, Payula, Tuchana. 먼저 지원이와 the Tensipeki, California ni.
Hi, Deshtile, Ingeming La Tensipeki, and Tiwa di Ingenang Puchwachi. And so my question is regarding the unity in our Tibetan society today, because I think these past few years I've seen a significant and a very noticeable divide amongst the people in our society. And as a community in diaspora and as a group of people with a very small, I think being united and having a united front is one of the most important qualities to have. And so my question is, if you were to be elected, how do you plan to lessen this divide and bring restore the community?
The sound quality is not very good, so I could not hear the whole thing, Tenzepegila. But the issue that you raised was the unity of the people. Of course, that is the most important, because when we are already facing an opponent as powerful as China, then obviously we need to be within our own small community. When we talk about diaspora community, we are talking about 130,000-40,000 Tibetans. So unity is very important. So that is why in the three campaign slogans that I have, the ways and means that I talked about was collective effort, co-effort, or cooperative effort. So that includes more than unity. It's not just unity, it's also inclusiveness. It's bringing everybody together. That has always been my aim. So in whatever capacity I've worked within the Tibetan community as a member of parliament, as executive director of Tibetan Parliamentary and Policy Research Center in Delhi, and also as Speaker of the Tibetan Parliament and as representative of His Holiness in the United States in Washington, D.C. Wherever I traveled, I spoke to the public, and I always stressed on this thing, but maybe some might believe that I myself am a cause for disunity, but that is not the case. Now, why all these issues are coming up? We are talking about Chogas, one thing, right? So Choga issue is one thing. That is where I always keep saying the youth should go through Tibetan history, understand how Tibet was, from 7th century, 9th century, during the great emperors of Tibet, to the disintegration, to the different hegemonies that ruled Tibet, to the 5th Dalai Lama, and till we lost our country. So we have to know what has been happening inside Tibet. It's very, very crucial, because the things that are happening now are based partly on what has happened in Tibet and how Tibet was as the three provinces of Tibet. And then the other issue is, of course, how people perceive those things and try to reason those things in the present age. So when we talk about the unity of the three chogas, it's very important to understand our history, the present situation, and then how to move forward. Um, in my case, I have, as speaker, I have to work with all the, in the standing committee, you have the representatives of the religious traditions, you have the three provinces, representatives of the three provinces. So we all work together, basically. So the unity leadership has to be proven from the top. People has to understand what is really happening so that they can make decision of their own. They just don't listen to somebody else and say, okay, think that may be right, but that should not be the case. When you hear something, there should be several dimensions that you should listen to. So then it becomes a holistic approach as to how you view things. So that is one thing. And then the other issue when we talk about unity is always the Rangsen Umelam issue that comes up, whatever the number within the community. So I have persistently and consistently have been saying that whatever path you follow, we follow democratic polity. And under a democratic polity, everybody has the right to think in whatever policies or believe in and profess and advocate for whatever policy you follow. But at the same time, we should have respect for the other. And it's everybody's right to defend your own position. Particularly in my case, when I was the speaker, it's my job to defend the middle way policy, because this is not something I personally believe in it. I was one of the person who was part of the parliament that passed this resolution, unanimous resolution. So it is my job also to protect and promote the middle way approach, just like Rangsen follower or a leader has the right to defend. Just because you are defending your position does not necessarily mean to say that you hate or you don't like the other group. Everybody wants independence if that is possible. There's no question about it. So right now, given the situation inside Tibet, we believe that this is the right path. So that is what we profess. So there should not be. The ultimate thing is the Rangsen followers are also patriotic Tibetans. Umelam followers are also working for the Tibetan cause. So all are in the same direction. But the thing is, whenever we have these issues, we have to direct all our energies against our opponent, China. Whether you are Rangsen follower or don't argue within ourselves. It doesn't make sense. If there has been many choices for us, then we would have already convinced each other. Particularly for the youth, I always urge you, I'm always telling you, get all the kind of right information. Then it is up to you to decide what path you should follow. We will never tell you what path you should follow, but you have, before you take a decision or take a stand, it's very important that you know what is the whole issue. Otherwise, you keep changing your mind every time you hear somebody say something else. Think, oh, this is also reasonable, that is also reasonable. Then it doesn't make sense. So it is very important that we have to get together. That is why I've always spoken about cooperative effort, pooling all our energies together, whatever policies, whatever things you believe in. There are ways to work around it. We will find it. I don't think there should be any issue. The only thing is when people spread rumors, like the last election when I decided not to sit with Lugarjam and people said, oh, Penpa Tsering doesn't like Rangsen, so he's not sitting with him. My reason was not that, not because Lugarjam was following Rangsen. My reason was because he was always trying to defame His Holiness. And we have many things on record. So that is the reason why, not because he follows Rangsen. So people should not misunderstand and be carried away by rumors that are being spread by people.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glona. That was a really good clarification. Now, Manzu Tua Sumba. So our third question is from 2016 winner, Mr. Tibet Sangil Gyap.
Please. Sangil Gyap.
Unmute Nanda Sangila, unmute.
Ore.
Sangil Gyap di kumin doa.
O tagudo.
Oh, tagudo.
Ngito de ani de kung Penpa la ani uja ni gata shu truma da shonera uja ni gu trumu yora uja ni gata trumu te ani tanda ngarongi ngoni tis chu nyamchak tong tis injerwa de tis chidin ro thongdo ani tela ani kasi sechang ni toni sakchi ani toni sakchi sechang la ani kasi jakato payena ani kongsa chak kusabji changna janak da nyamta ani tela chi derwa ton tela ani chi yerje ton yala ani thalam kandis yore mitrati
Re ta kyan di chuwa di pyoge na tangbe sonzangye pyoge na lengyab chosh ta tanda dradi yagushta mido ti chizang cha sangwa chi kogu mido da tsu di tanda jesu kwaya di gyawarumchi ki kutsab kwaya ta pyoge dremegi nedon gana chan sungu duwa sangye gyab kyangi dismundu tanda nyegi kazin topic tangbudi joshi tangbudi karesina pyoge zadun ruptab kola geja share didu sambala nye turing stani short term long term mid term ge chashidre kun share tina lolia short term mid term na lola ngajugi any chargu chokjungchi umellamgi tadrup shisungki any lenggu khandes pegu yome chargu chokjungchi tenjagi any ge tamsala tengegi chargu chokjungchi zoya chashi chiore 다 tenjagi chokjung choya digi chargu chokjung digi 아니 단대기 표현으로 내단다 견한 슝구 짐베 시주다 계지기 첩시기 주류 칸데스 두고도 딜바베게 아니 가서 우멜람게 토네 가서 남규 지소나로 야 랭귀 베레스데 좀 가디네 지 견한 슝섭 뒤는 친게데스 잡아이는 랭귀 베와 점점마도 셴바치리 양고지 지금이도 와 그래서 랭귀 베야들 뭐 넘다 망부 시부주래 학벌도 아니 1960s 70s 저 나로랑 아주 빨라다 보모모도 장가되게 디디 콘존 롭종시다 요마르와 디디 콘존 말랑갈 존이 깨게 마도시다 신기요 말에 다 단다도 심바 있나 겨울음치 도지거린 때네레 아주 내장 작업 된조거린 때네레 캐나조 파마거린 때네레 디디 진행한 정말 롭종 시우스라디어와 디인주 소말리아 아니 아주 롭종군 누버디 배주 땅치 슝다 아니 이들의 첩식이 미나다 차과경에다 시실리공기 미다 진경구 미다 전 상원을 제와 시한 중에 빼마시 방망고지 리고요래 어디간래 다 구섭디에 디디 선발을 가르치우스다 아니 겨울무치기 구섭디 거두고다 마코시야디 아주 내당들 따고요래 내당직 벽에 견하기 알랭 칸데스 지기도 민도 딜 때니 아니 구섭디 아니 아주 거두고도 두주 램버직qab이야 아니 겨울무치리야 냐산 슈니 아니 구섭디 아주디 프로토콜 디레다 구섭 꿰디 카샤기 고그레 이네디 아니 envoy of His Holiness Dalai Lama lagune special envoy of His Holiness Dalai Lama lagu di senedi 겨울무치기 양 아주 가르 슈고래 딘데치니도 나도 지레 딘드 선발이야 구섭 고고에 대 개침부 통고도 찍네 찰고 속중디기 뒤균드네 아니 내도인데 주간라 삼노땅네 레가치네 처시직직 초심바치네 아니 구섭 소중지기 다 야나냠도 제 와치야기 탑롬 카르카르도 총박의 윤회 카르도 레지 토와 술버들의 윤회 카르도 아니 야가슝기 야나 슝기 단다직 탑줄지 유 윤회 카르 연구도 이게 상물로 그 possibility 땅 아주 지계기 첩시미나냐 냐다 쉐야든데 kana leadership access 유교도 장가들 양 간데스 치고도 다디 탑시에 망고지 체되고 거래 디간에 찍니 단다 포장님들 저와 요요버직 지는 호스장모 좀 좋깔로 나되기도 하텐디 구섭디 가두고다 마콜레디 초직네 갸나기 간절로 response 시단들 라리기레 초니네 아니 간주 디기 내단들 때니 아니 구섭지 고 렌샤 다드레지 딱다 레샤 삼에 투줄랑 간주 고용거래 이네 탑주 디게디 간주 two prong three prong 담에 마무치는 용한데 그래
Hola, Puchana. Penpa Kuchina. Manzu Tua, Shiva the Kamikane, Tsering on Zamlai, Tsering on Zamla.
Tsering yang
So my question is fairly simple. What's your vision on youth empowerment?
Yeah, that youth empowerment when we talk about youth empowerment, my belief is that we should provide all the right kind of information to the youth. Let us say in terms of advocacy, we have these 12 offices around the world from Tokyo to, Canberra, Nepal, Delhi, Geneva, London, Brussels, New York, and Sao Paulo, one in Moscow. So these are our outlets to reach out to the world. The whole world map is divided into these zones where, for example, Office of Tibet in Brussels has to handle all the countries from Portugal to Spain to France to Belgium, Netherlands, Luxembourg, all these countries. So also with Geneva, they have so many countries, all the German-speaking countries, south of Europe. They have to handle that. The Office of Tibet London has to handle Scandinavia, all the countries in Scandinavia, Iceland, okay, of course, UK, and then Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. So one Office of Tibet has so many responsibilities, but there are only 3-4 people in the office. So what we need to do is by informing the youth, people like you, who about the issue of Tibet, then you should be in a position to be representative or be ambassadors for the Tibetans in Tibet. And that is what His Holiness has always been saying. The reason for these 1,000 Tibetans to go to US, where I met the person who worked on this program, who helped move the resolution in the US Congress in 1990. And he was also saying the same thing when they met with His Holiness expected all these Tibetans to be ambassadors for Tibetans inside Tibet. So also with youth. So when we say youth empowerment, one is to inform, provide all the information. And the second is to create opportunities. So I would, once you are informed and once you realize that I am a Tibetan and I have this responsibility, not just making a living for myself, then I believe that particularly the youngsters in the 37 different countries that we have, the Tibetans, they can come together, they can form groups. And I would also advise them to work very closely with the Tibetan associations, institutions like International Campaign for Tibet, and things that, so that we can collectively pool our energy to explain about Tibet to anybody. You should be in a capacity to explain about Tibet to anybody else, whether it's just one ordinary individual that you meet on the way, or whether it's a person from the Foreign Office, or whether it's a person from the parliament or from media or think tank. So we have to reach that stage. Only when we reach that stage, then I would feel that we would have empowered our youth. Otherwise, it's just empty talk talking about youth empowerment.
Thank you.
Kuchina, Yanzamla, and Bunga Kuchina. On the tour, next the Pinzo Wangden, California ni.
Pinzo Wangden.
What you mix me? Das candidate Shambada Zugi call a Samzi. So you can
딩에 가진 당분에 딩에 진짜 구베더리니 니무데 딩에 단다가 의도를 랑야기 세다 체어와. When I made my announcement to stand as a candidate for the 2021 election, Sigong election, even at that time I made a commitment to myself that I will not be speaking anything good or bad about other candidates, because or anything about this present Kashak, what they have done right or wrong. I don't want to speak about this, mainly because as a candidate myself, I would like to set an example during this election that the elections can be conducted without divisiveness within the community. Now, for example, I've been asked by the Democratic Party of Tibet to participate at a conference, the discussion session in Dharamsala on December 18th and 19th. They wanted to invite all the candidates, but there are several commitments I've made. One is that I do not want to be responsible for people losing their lives just in case it happens, because the corona pandemic is spreading like anything everywhere in the world. And I have decided that I will not, even I don't speak to my own people in Bailakupi. I live here right now, but I'm not asking them to assemble, and I don't speak to them. So that is the reason why we are here today. So I have made a decision that I will not speak about any other candidate, because most of them are friends. We have worked together, we know each other. So, but I don't want to be a cause to create, again, a divisiveness within the community. That is the reason why I don't want to speak about any other candidates. Sorry, next. Now, who else is left? Chimil Hamla is left. Yeah. Chimla, you want to go on?
Hindi, ta Thomas Dalea, Tuchina, the cook of the Nache, any near to the Injuton Shucha. So, considering the geopolitics in the international stage right now is a critical time, considering that a lot of eyes are actually on China. But I personally feel that Tibet is sort of falling behind on the advocacy work. I wonder what is your plan in terms of using this opportunity, using this critical time to put the lens back onto Tibet, or how are we going to create opportunities for Tibet to, be back on that international stage and matter?
Now, the reason for focus or losing focus of a particular issue or a particular case like Tibet right now, of course, the Xinjiang case has taken more importance on the international stage because of the extent of the Chinese policies and programs there. And then Hong Kong issue has become very hot. That is the reason why Tibet issue is behind. And also because currently we don't have very hot issues inside Tibet that attracts the attention of the international community. But that does not mean to say that we have to create these hot opportunities inside Tibet. We are not trying to instigate Tibetans to do something bizarre or to attract the attention of international community. But at the same time, now what we have to think is when we do advocacy for Tibet, we are not thinking only short term. We have to think short term, mid-term, and long term. And just because other issues are gaining importance on international stage does not mean to say that we have to do something drastic. But on the other hand, we have to be very, very aware of what is happening inside Tibet. And we have, whatever we tell the international community, it has to be based on facts. So those issues in the short term we will keep doing. And the international right now, of course, China is doing all these. The only reason I can see is for themselves to keep their power. If they don't have any power, they have no relations with the United States or any other country. So they realize this now, that during the pandemic, when we are talking about, even now they claim that they have 3% growth, or unlike many other economies in the world. But despite all that, when it comes down from 7% to 3% or below earlier, then you're talking about a whole lot of unemployment in China. And these unemployment can lead to social unrest, and these can lead to toppling the Communist Party. So this is their major concern right now. They don't care what kind of climate they are creating around their countries, all the countries around South China Sea, whether there's issues in Ladakh or Doklam with India and United States and any other diplomats who visits Taiwan or talks about Hong Kong, they always criticize. So these things doesn't help China in any way. But on the other hand, when we say that, okay, the whole world is against China, so we should do something, that does not mean to say that we, have to resort to something else. We have to be steady, consistent with our policy, and stress on the importance that we are seeking a negotiated, mutually beneficial solution for the Tibet issue of Tibet. So we will need to take stock. That is the reason why I want to form this committee, the strategic committee, the committee to strategize programs and then see how best we should approach the international community under this given scenario. But at the same time, we just cannot anger China just because all these things are happening. We have to, all our things has to be based on facts and figures.
Can I do a follow-up? Is that okay?
Yeah, sure, please.
Okay, good to know. I guess it's a follow-up in regards to that, but I know you also asked for some feedback, so maybe I'll take the opportunity to share some as well. Earlier you mentioned the importance of youngsters, to be well-informed and think long-term, and I really agree. I think it's really important that we need to know our own histories and have the knowledge to be able to present and also be better ambassadors of Tibet. However, in reality, if you were to look at it, Shanghai or like North America to Europe, most of us are also busy surviving into the Western world, or trying to fit in and integrate, right? And along with that, I believe that there is a lack of access to information. For example, even within the Sikyong elections right now, it was so challenging to be able to find information on all of the candidates to sort of make a decision about what I want to do or who I want to vote for. Prime example, Tibetan election website is not even available in English yet. So I think, yes, we're all up here for language preservation and cultural preservation, but reality check, we have to be practical. How many of us can actually decode a website in Tibetan? And the reality is that even our parents, some of us can't do it. So it's not really easy. So that's one thing. I think in terms of accessibility, it's been really challenging. So I really appreciate that you mentioned you want to inform, and then like the empowerment plan that you presented. I'm excited to see how that program would unfold if you were to be elected. And in regards to just the follow-up, I just wanted to know, you have extensive experience within the CTA. I would like to know, what is something new that you would like to bring as Sikyong? Are there any dramatic changes that you plan on making, or any unique ways to present a program? And I know you just mentioned the committee to strategize. How is that different from the Tibet Task Force or any other initiatives that have been presented in the past? So yeah.
Now, in terms of administration, in the last 7 weeks, I have been talking on different issues that concerns us. And then I have already talked about what are the criteria to make this happen. For example, when we say strengthening Central Tibetan administration, what are the criteria to for strengthening it? Then I talk about what I will do. So I will not repeat everything what I've said, because there are lot of topics that I've covered. But on the whole, again, I stress on the importance. When we talk about Central Tibetan administration, we talk about the 3 pillars of democracy, the 3 autonomous bodies. So all these bodies have to be taken into consideration in a collective effort. Give respect to each other. We might have a lot of teething problems because we have a small charter, a small book of just 115 articles. Other independent countries have a whole thick book on constitution. So we don't have all the details when we talk about rules, regulations, and all that. And we'll keep facing new challenges. We will have new issues that might even cause constitutional crisis. But those has to be resolved in a way that it does not, divide the community or make the community feel that, oh, this is failing. No way. We can have a lot of other means of doing it. Even in terms of election, I'm thinking that, I've talked with my friends in Bangalore who are very good in computers, and we said, okay, next 5 years, we can assist the election commission in digitizing the whole electoral process. So my friend said, yeah, if you want to do that, we can go to Nandan Nilekani, because Nandan Nilekani is the VP of a company who did all this Aadhaar card, which is very similar to social security system in the United States and in Canada. So there are ways we can do things. Particularly, we have to take advantage of the digital age. So when we say we will inform the youth, I'm not just talking only about physical visits. Like Chimi, you were there in Dharamsala, you have seen many of you have not been to Dharamsala, you have not seen Dharamsala, the effect is different. So, but still we will have visual communication about CTA structure, how it functions, what is happening inside Tibet. So we'll have a total separate section within the DIIR as to the mechanism and the tools of informing our youth. Yeah, when you mentioned about, trying to barely survive in the United States, now I have been watching our community for a very long time, and certain things, I have said this during my previous presentations also, that there are certain things which should be bottoms up in its approach, depending on the nature of the program, and certain things has to be top down. So there will be many different approaches to address different kind of issues. What I'm urging the youth is, when I say, okay, the youth, you have to spend time for Tibet, you have to dedicate your time for Tibet. Chimi, you know that you have internship programs with the parliament members in Canada. I have tried to promote those in the United States when I was representative there, talking with the youngsters to serve with the senators or House of Representative members at the local level, so that we have some access to these members whenever we need them. If a young Tibetan works there for 2-3 months, they have the access to the candidate. So those kind of things, very small things, but then you have to decide, okay, how many days can I spend for Tibet in a year? We're not talking about all 365 days. So if you can spend 1 week on Tibet in 1 year, let us say one youth. And then also in terms of financial assistance, also, if you say, okay, I'm going to contribute 2 days of my salary for the Tibetan cause. So on those similar lines, I'm never very, very categorical on what a Tibetan can do for Tibet. I gave this example of a Tibetan living in Italy who was alone by himself. He was a monk in Pokhara before. He didn't know any much about Tibet. But when he came to Italy and was living by himself, working as a receptionist in a big resort, then he asked me, what can I do as one single Tibetan individual in Italy in a remote place? So I said, by destiny, of course, you will not get to know all your customers, but then by chance, by destiny, you might get to know some of them very closely. And if you can talk with them, and if you can sponsor 1 or 2 Tibetan child, I said, your purpose is served, being a Tibetan. So there are many various means and ways, depending on your capacity, as to what you can do but at the same time, now the generation who has come into United States and Canada, now it has been almost 2.5 decades since they came. So from the time they came till the time they are where they are now, and looking at all of you, some of you may have come very young from India, Nepal. Some of you may have been born in the United States or Canada. So we have a variety of, and I have always advised the Tibetan associations when you were part of the Tibetan Association in Toronto also. I've always told them you need one young person in the Tibetan Association who can handle the youth wing, bring their ideas, because they have a lot of ideas. The youth have a lot of ideas. They have a lot of intelligence. The only thing they lack is experience and a full knowledge of what is happening. So that is the only thing. You just give a little more time to understand that. Once you understand that, next time you just see a heading of a news and you know what is the content. So you should reach that level where you can say, okay, I know this issue. So only that way we can move forward. And there are many ways we can do it. It's very difficult to explain in a short time. Yeah, sorry.
Thank you, Chimila, Kola, Kuchinang. Dingela Gwanda, my camera just froze. So sorry about that. And so next to it, the nursing Wangbuni.
Just to Penpa sitting law. So I did have some questions, but I feel like a lot of the questions are already asked. So you're talking about awareness about the Tibetan issue, being Tibetan. So based on your knowledge and your awareness from your vast experience, currently, what do you think are one of the biggest threats or issues that we, the Tibetan community in the US and the diaspora are facing that you believe?
For the community in general or for the youth?
I would say the community in general. So let's say the diaspora. So North America, India, Nepal, and Australia and Europe.
Now, there are many existential challenges that we are facing right now. I was born in Bailakupi. I was brought up in Bailakupi. I know this settlement from top to bottom. So just like that. And I have also visited many other settlements. So in that sense, right now, we are talking about some 40 to 50% of the Tibetans who have moved out. Just in my camp, the third camp where Shimi and I both come from, my brother checked the numbers, and when he was the camp leader, and he said 60% of the population from third camp has gone out of the settlement. This may not be the same case everywhere. There are certain settlements who are a little behind. So these are the demographic and social changes that we are facing. The last 60 years, because of His Holiness, because of the compact communities that we live in India, Nepal, and Bhutan, we have been able to preserve our cultural heritage, our language and religion and all that. Now the challenge is when people are getting scattered, how physically, how do we get them together closer emotionally? I think in a short answer is, how do we do that? Physically distant, but emotionally closer. And that we will do it.
And so to our next the Namze Genso.
So Tibetans across the world have different ideas on what is important for the Tibetan cause and Tibetan people. So if elected into the Sikyong seat, what are your biggest priorities for the Tibetan community moving forward, and what changes do you hope to make for us?
Now, if you're, I'm not very clear about what you're asking, whether it's the political movement that we are talking about, or whether it's issues within the community. If we are talking about issues within the community, broadly, now my answers are becoming very long, so I'll try to keep it short. Now, this, I have always felt people who are living in independent countries, like let's say even for Indians, how many people read newspapers every single day to understand what is happening? Now, we are supposed to be people without a nation today. We lost our country. So we should have more responsibility in understanding our situation. Now, the first 30, 40, 50 years in exile, everybody just believe that His Holiness will do everything. On the one hand, it's good you have so much faith in His Holiness, and I have sometimes I jokingly say, but on the other hand, it's more like, Your Holiness, you keep doing, we'll just watch. Now that should not be the case. We want every single Tibetan to participate in whatever capacity possible. If there are people with money, if they are not able to go on the street or do advocacy work and all that, they can contribute money. So there are many ways of doing this. Your time, your money, your work within the community. That is why among the 7, 8 of you, Chime has been one whom I know for a very short while in Toronto, that she, at a very young age, she joined Tibetan Association of Toronto in running that in the executive committee. So I also know another young girl from Boston, Sutimla, I think, if I remember her right. She also got inspired because of Chime, because she heard that Chime is serving the Tibetan community, and she thought, if she can do it, why can't I do it? So that is why I strongly urge every single Tibetans, putting in all their energies together for collective effort. So for that, same goes with the elderly people. It's quite a shame that when I go within the community, there are very few people who understand Tibetan history and the current affairs. That is why our community is filled with rumors. So we have to do away with rumors. So for that, the only way is to put facts in front of people and let people judge for themselves and be participating in all the issues.
Thank you. 먼저 tour next the 남길 주민이.
My question for you today is, I think I almost got the answer to it, but still I'll ask it. So for the cause of Tibet, right? We as a community and the government adopted the middle way approach to fight for our cause. But then on like uprising day or any other kind of protest that we usually do, we always chant free Tibet, China out of Tibet, and so on and so on. And if we look at it, it does not lie on the premises of the middle way approach. And as for me, I 100% support and agree with the middle way approach. But as a youth, for me, like when I try to do something through middle way approach, right? Like I cannot just go out there and protest such thing as like we're doing right now. So I'm having difficulty with that. And my question is, if you are selected as the Sikyong, how can you help us, like youths and every other groups of Tibetans, on helping us how to do it through middle way approach? Because I know there's many organizations like SFT and all those that are doing really good things, but how can I do it through the middle way approach? Like if you have any suggestion for that. Thank you.
Obviously, one issue or one impediment in the whole process is the setup of organizations where youth can take leadership roles. So far, for the last several decades, we had Tibetan Youth Congress. So I don't know whether I should share this story or not, but then, okay. So for the youth, the Youth Congress or Students of Free Tibet, all those platforms have become very important platforms for them to come up in public life if they want to serve the Tibetan cause. Now, similarly, youth can form their own organizations on middleway approach. They should not be. That does not necessarily mean to say that we are trying to, pit the youth against youth. No, every youth has a right to think in the way they think, also based on facts. So the people who follow middleway approach, the youth particularly who follow middleway approach, can form their own organization, just like they have formed in Minnesota. In Minnesota, they formed their own group, the young ones, and they led their own campaigns. The only thing they need is a little more support from the elders and from the community leaders. So even within the Tibetan Association, also, when I talk about at least one or two youth as executive members of the community, whereby you are giving chance for the youth to take leadership, there also, the youth can come together from an association point of view, because most of the associations follow what the Central Tibetan Administration follows. So either you create a separate cell for yourself, a separate group. It need not necessarily be a very organized, registered organization or something like that. It could be a group of just 5 youngsters who will do their own thing. Get a right person to advise you, right person to consult, make your own plan, and do your own lobbying. You don't have to wait anybody else to tell you to do this or do that, or if it becomes larger, for the better. Why not?
Good to know. So we had 9 participants live now. And we did online kurso. New York Tsering how can we stop those who are denouncing His Holiness by our own public, whether they are ex-executive members of parliament or present?
His Holiness ki something, only one thing that I really can't digest is Tibetan people themselves trying to defame our one and only leader who put us in the position that we are today. So when you start criticizing His Holiness the Dalai Lama, that is something that I cannot stomach. So I make it a point, it's my commitment to respond to each and every individual, whoever they are, whether they are in high places or small places. So that is there. But on the other hand, we have to understand. Now, my strategy is, of course, to make the community rumor-free. Information not based on rumor. Right now, social media is so active, people doesn't have to take their names. In anonymity, they can speak whatever they want, and they are not responsible. So you have one group of people who just like creating problem within the community. But then you have those other kind of people who are being used by the Chinese government to spread false information, disinformation within the Tibetan community. Then there are also people who are followers of the Töge group who, instigate all kind of wrong information within the community. So our job is, from the Central Tibetan Administration side, as Sikyong, I've already made it very clear that we will have, we will make the media very open. Media should be free from the fear of retribution on whatever issue they want to discuss. So once we take over, when you give us the responsibility, then we will give full freedom to the media. Then media will invite experts, people who know issues. Then the ordinary people will also get informed with the right kind of information, not the rumors that are in the social media. And we will also appoint 2 people, one in English and one in Tibetan, to answer people's queries. Every single week, whatever people ask questions to the CTA, we'll make it a point. So thereby, at least we can reduce rumors. We cannot do away completely with rumors, But at the same time, also in this issue of His Holiness, people trying to, defame His Holiness, whether they are former members of parliament, we cannot stop them for sure. I cannot promise you that we'll stop everybody from speaking that. No, we can't do that. But then the society, the more they are aware, then they know whom to listen to and whom not to listen to. That will make the difference.
What is your policy about non-governmental organizations such as Zamar sponsors helping and supporting Tibet?
Oh, that is very important. Now, just yesterday, I spoke about the financial position of the Central Tibetan Administration and its sustainability. So in the long run, right now, we spend about, the plan outlay for this current year, 2021, comes to around 38 million US dollars, right? 38 million US dollars. Now, out of that, how much does the Tibetans contribute in terms of Green Book in India, Nepal, Bhutan, and elsewhere? That comes to only about 2.6 million US dollars. Now, how much is 2.6 million to that of 38 million is the total outlay. So 2.5 out of 38 million is only about 6.6% of our total expenditure. So how much are the Tibetans contributing to the cause? Now, if you take, let us forget the programs, earmarked programs, but if you take only the recurring expenses of salary and all those related expenses related to maintaining an office, it comes to about 10.5 million US dollars. Now, 10.5 million US dollars to what we are contributing, 2.5, even that has increased over the years. The last time I checked about 6-7 years back, it was only 9-10% of our recurring expenses. Today, because of you guys, because many of you went out and you contribute in dollars. So today we received 2.5 million, which is about 24% of our recurring expenses. Now, ultimately, in the long run, if we have to stand on our own feet and if we have to do away with dependency culture, then the only way is for Tibetans to fund themselves, whether in official channels, through official channels, or unofficial channels like the non-governmental organizations. So the non-governmental organizations, it's not just non-government who are organized in a certain way, but there are also many individuals who are doing many things at their own level. So those are very, very important component of how do we do away with dependency culture. Today, let us say we receive about 8 plus 3 million, 11 million from US government, 2 million from the Canadian government, or 4 million in the next 4 years, whatever. So suppose a policy change occurs in the United States. We don't get that 8 plus 3 million, 11 million. We are not including those programs for Voice of America, Radio Free Asia, those programs inside Tibet. Now, if that goes off, we have a major problem on our hand. We will have serious problem as to how to fund our healthcare or social problems, social issues and educational problems. So all these, when we speak about financing the Tibetan government, I spoke about short term, that we have to continue getting the fund that we need to spend on need basis, priority basis. And then long term, we have to be able to stand our own feet, and that's the only way to go. So the more the Tibetans become financially independent individually, the community should also benefit, and the Central Tibetan as a whole should also benefit. So kudos to those who are doing good work, helping other Tibetans.
Follow up to what you use. Message so.
Hi, Penpa. Once again, thank you for having us all here. So my question is about advocacy, political advocacy specifically. I was able to ask this question to Lobsang Enela, who came here just last week. And I wanted to kind of talk about advocacy in the sense of the Tibetan associations all around Changri. North America. There are, I think, about somewhere between 30 to 35. One particular one one specific thing I want to talk about is the Tibet Support and Policy Act. It's currently pending in the Senate. And so what I wanted to say is that, I was looking at the data, and it seems like Massachusetts is one of the only 2 Tibetan populated states in America that has both their senators co-sponsored. I think we're lucky to have older, members in our community, and also younger members in our community who have pushed the bill, specifically someone like Tsering, who is from Amherst, Massachusetts, and he has been working for over 10 years on lobbying and advocacy, and he has really helped us. And both our senators are on board. He's currently running for the North American Chutu. One thing I also want to notice is that there are a lot of highly populated Tibetan areas in America whose senators have not signed on to the bill. For example, Minnesota has 0 senators on the bill. California only has 1. New York, the most highly populated city, area in America, has only 1 itself. So I think a lot of that has to do with the consistency or the priority of the Tibetan Association, because all the Tibet support groups, maybe it's strong in New York, maybe it's strong in Minnesota, like we know, but there's one thing that's constant all around North America, and that is the Tibetan associations, the Chitin Sokpas. So my question to you is, how can we make sure we strengthen advocacy, political advocacy, so that we can properly lobby for bills like the Tibet Support and Policy Act in these regional areas? Because I personally would love to see more Tibetan associations, Boston too, kind of engage and do a little bit more lobbying and make Tibetan political advocacy a priority in their agendas.
The first time after taking over the responsibility of the representative of His Holiness Dalai Lama in Washington, D.C., I traveled around the United States, almost all the places, and in Canada. The first time what I did was to communicate with the community, the association leaders and its members, and how we can refine the system, because all of us exist in the same category in the United States, even though you are scattered in different states. We all enjoy the same status. So we wanted to create, what Washington did was to create a bylaw whereby you conform to the laws of the land and also have respect for His Holiness and the Central Tibetan administration. So those kind of things, we thought we can homogenize this in the whole of North America, but I didn't get enough time. The second time I visited all these states was to encourage youngsters to join congressmen or senators in their offices and work. So one good job that is being done is by International Campaign for Tibet. They do the lobby work with SFT and all that. And then they also have leadership workshop, which is very, very essential to understand how things work, whether it's in Canada or in the United States. You have to know the system and see. And to do advocacy work, you have to do a lot of psychological work also, understand the background of the person that you are meeting. So all that, of course, what you're saying is very, very important. But one of the concerns that we have right now, if you have listened to what I spoke yesterday, I have mentioned that our community in Dharamsala also, the setup has become very big. We have 7 departments for 130,000, 40,000 people. We have a lot of staffs, about 500, 600 people. Then the focus is more on how do we maintain our community than working for the cause. So similar is the case with the Tibetan associations in North America or Europe. But what I found was, you mentioned the Massachusetts. I know Tundup, I've met all of them. But Jim McGowan has visited Tibet. He has been to Dharamsala. He has met with His Holiness. That makes a lot of difference. A person who has met His Holiness once remain committed to the Tibetan issue for life. So that is why we make effort. During my time, we brought Speaker Nancy Pelosi, at that time, Leader Nancy Pelosi to Dharamsala along with other members. So we have to build those kind of relationship, personal relationship with the members of parliament so that we can reach out. Now, the good thing with the smaller communities, people with 300 to 500 to 600 people, they have to spend less time on our own administration. in maintaining our own administration, but also be able to reach to senators and House members. People like New York, I have told them several times during my tenure there as to why can't you reach out to, because New York and California and all these places, you have a lot of members representing them. And but the problem is the New York people themselves don't know how much is their population, the Tibetan population in New York. So is the case with Toronto, so is the case with Minnesota or Bay Area, wherever you have larger number of Tibetans, and you are focused more on your own thing and a lot of internal politics within the community, rather than spending that time on reaching out to members of parliament. So what they are doing in Canada in reaching out to members of parliament, youngsters being given the opportunity to intern with members of parliament. So that kind of builds that relationship between the members and the public. Now that you are citizens of the United States and Canada, you have that advantage. And that is what International Campaign for Tibet has been focusing on for many years. And this is where we need to strengthen. When I was the representative there, we made sure that we work very closely with International Campaign for Tibet, whatever they're doing. If it is their initiative, we support from the back. So when I was there, we did this lobby day program, and the participation was much more than before. And in Canada, we restarted the lobby campaign, lobby program. When I was there for 1 year, I was there for 2 days in Ottawa. So all these things have to do, and then you have to inspire other youngsters to do those kind of work. If the elders are not able to do it, you form your group in your area, in Wisconsin, let us say. You form a small group who think similar way, then you try to reach out to your Congress members. If the community leaders are not able to do that, it's a good opportunity for you to take the lead.
Thank you very much, Payu, for your follow-up question. So that will conclude our live. So thank you, and thank you to our wonderful participants. Your questions are very amazing and much needed. I want to also thank all of our live viewers. Today's event has been very successful, and I hope everyone participating had a wonderful experience. We will continue to have live virtual Q&A sessions the next 2 Sundays, so we hope everyone will continue to engage in our meaningful cause. This coming election is crucial, so make sure you all register to vote. Remember that we have been blessed with democracy, so we should all exercise that right. It's your voice and your vote, and it does matter. Everyone mark your calendar for January 3rd to cast your vote. Thank you again for coming today, and we hope to see you next weekend on December 6th with our Tibetan youth from Europe. Lastly, a huge thank you to our amazing social media working group committee for making this event possible. Thank you so much. And I will go ahead and stop our live streaming. So, Tsering,